Chipewyan Lakes is a small Cree settlement situated about 90 air miles west of the oil-rich Fort McMurray area and about 250 miles north of Edmonton. Isolation may have its disadvantages, but on the other hand, there's been less pressure on families to abandon the old ways, as witnessed by the craftsmanship of Arnold Orr. Whether he's building a cabin, a toboggan, or repairing some item, he relies on skills acquired from his father and grandfather. At the moment, he's constructing a moose call, solely with materials provided by nature. The knowledge of how to select birch bark, where to locate long, straight spruce roots that will retain strength when split, is essential to the success of such projects. For example, Arnold has learned that the most suitable roots are found under spruce trees, whose lower branches tend to bend upwards at the ends. In general, these are tall spruce, growing well away from the muskeg on high ground. Thus, Arnold's knowledge and experience enables him to produce work that is recognized for its fine craftsmanship. And for this reason, he is often called upon to build things for relatives or other members of the community. Within an hour of removing the birch bark, the moose call is ready for service. And there's hardly anyone more capable than Arnold to carry out that very first test. Most of what Arnold makes is more complex and time-consuming. A pair of snowshoes would be one example, and according to his son Elsier, it's a project that often is in the works.
One thing my dad makes a lot is snowshoes. The best time to make these snowshoes is towards the fall, and he makes these snowshoes for himself and for the people around here in this community. when you finish the form, he hangs them up over a stove, dries them, and after about four days, you start them off in drilling holes around so that they could lace these snowshoes with a moose hide or a caribou hide or anything.
In the past, it was necessary that tools were simple enough to be easily transported, yet were effective. The two most important were the axe and the knife. An awl for piercing bark or leather was also indispensable, but one could be readily fashioned from bone. Similarly, Arnold works to a large extent with the knife, an axe, and awl. As a matter of note, he prefers his own handmade knife as opposed to the store-bought variety. The blade is wrought from a piece of steel used in muskrat traps. However, it is perhaps reasonable to assume that Arnold would permit himself the luxury of a small hand drill, especially if several pairs of snowshoes are to be made. No doubt Arnold would be pleased to see his grandsons carry on traditional skills when his hands are no longer able to pull a knife across a piece of birch, nor his legs carry him in search of spruce roots. His sons appear to have made a decision, one that indicates that they are seeking a lifestyle different than Arnold knows. But his grandsons, Leroy and Elvis, are in a situation that will never be more favorable for learning these skills, if they have the desire. Of course, when Arnold was young, it was not a question of desire. It was practical, if not essential, for a young man to make equipment needed for a life of hunting, fishing, and trapping. But growing cultural change has undermined the existence of old customs, and it's doubtful that these boys will find a need for similar items when they mature. The most involved step comes when the frame is ready for the webbing. Not only is the webbing a crucial and complicated phase of construction, but the hide must be also properly prepared and cut into laces producing the longest possible length. And here, Arnold requires some assistance.
And then to make this hide, you got to strip the hair and soak them in the water after, and start making laces around, cutting up from the center. You go around in a circle, and you would make a long laces out of the hide, out of this hide. For making these laces of hide, my mother is good for to have my dad making these, to use them in the snowshoes. You use a thick laces on a foot part, and use a thin ones in the front and in the back part. Lacing snowshoes is you have to start from the front part and on the back, and the last thing to do is you got to lace them in a foot part in the center. That's the last part that they do for me, placing snowshoes. Besides snowshoes, he likes to make a lot of things, and he likes always carving out something, and he's a really good craftsman here, around the best around this settlement, and pretty soon he's going to make a big canoe, which is going to take him around 3 months or so. It's going to be a birch bark canoe, I guess.
For about a week and a half now, Arnold has been spending varying amounts of time on the snowshoes. If one excludes the time required for drying the wood and preparing the hide, he could have had the snowshoes ready in less than 4 days. The amount of hours spent on a project is also governed by demands of chores around the house, and notably, the fact that part of most mornings are given over to checking the nets and bringing home the supply of fish. The snowshoes are considered ready for use without the addition of any sort of preservative. Unlike the commercial product, these are not treated with shellac. All things being equal, expensive factory-made snowshoes may last longer, but under hard use where breakage is frequently a possibility, such things as preservative are not of great concern to the hunter and trapper of the settlement. Usually, Arnold concentrates on one task at a time. But in this case, another particularly important project has been started. As mentioned, Arnold has consented to make a large birch bark canoe. By special request, it will be constructed in exactly the same way he remembers the canoes made by his grandfather. So once again, a birch bark canoe is being made in Chipewyan Lakes by a craftsman who cares to remember.